The problem is if you focus your economy only on buying and selling, you're going to build a system which prioritises making money above everything else. And we have a very fragile economy which collapses if it stops.
The coronavirus pandemic continues to grow.
The economic pain of Covid-19 will be deep and protracted, and nowhere will be spared.
We've got desperate people turning up at the soup kitchen every day. Desperate people.
COVID is on the one hand showing us what we really need to live, and on the other hand showing us how fragile the economy is.
This is Simon. He's an ecological economist. Ecological economics takes a big picture view that sees the human economy as embedded in nature. It focuses on sustainability and development rather than efficiency and growth. I discovered Simon's article, What Will the World Be Like After Coronavirus? And reading it felt like a bit of a eureka moment. The article explained that the economics of collapse are fairly straightforward. Businesses exist to make a profit. If they can't produce, they can't sell things. This means they won't make profits, which means they are less able to employ you. So, more people lose their jobs or fear losing their jobs. As coronavirus set this collapse in motion, it revealed that our current economic system can't be relied upon to give us the things that we need to live, like healthcare, food, and housing.
And so you have to have some other system which steps in and protects those things.
One of the things that the pandemic has revealed is our reliance on growth. I wanted to talk with Simon more about this.
Across all kinds of environmental categories, never-ending growth is just a terrible idea.
Growth is one of our least contested ideologies. For one, it sounds like a good thing, and it's what we've been told we're aiming for, with gross domestic product seen by many as the measure of success. But you don't have to look far to find plenty of other people shouting otherwise. The growth is not only terrible for our planet, but mathematically impossible. Put simply, economic activity uses materials from the earth, turns them into energy and sells them. Sure, we're turning to renewables, but year on year we fly more, buy more, and there's more of us on the planet. So given that we have a finite amount of resources, even if we just continued at a sustained pace, we'd eventually completely undermine the natural systems that our economic system relies on. Add to that the mathematical paradox of sustained growth year on year, and it's pretty clear that infinite growth is just a really bad idea.
So how do you manage an economy that doesn't grow? And how do you do it in a just and equitable way?
This is where alternative models like Kate Raworth's Doughnut economics are changing the way we think about distribution. Kate believes we can manage an economy that doesn't rely on growth. But first we have to change how we think about work. As she explains, work happens in 4 spaces: the market, the state, the household, and the commons. More on those later, but critically, Kate explains that our current economic system is totally biased towards markets, and they're the basis of the capitalist system. The market mechanism is based on supply and demand, where goods are bought and sold at prices determined by what's known as the free market.
Essentially, the default position of a market is not how much do you need this service we're providing, it's are you willing to pay for it.
Simon explained that markets are very reliant on continual growth, which is a dynamic unique to markets. Restrictions in relation to the pandemic have stopped a lot of that growth, revealing that we can't get all the things that we need to live safe and healthy and enjoyable lives purely from market-based processes. The example he gave is that just because advertising campaigns can't be made and hair can't be cut because designers and hairdressers have to stay at home, it doesn't stop there being homes to live in or food to eat. But our reliance on market-based processes means that people are genuinely struggling to pay their rent or buy food. He also explained how our current system favours efficiency over resilience.
What capitalism is very good at is making each individual process as efficient as it possibly can be. When you scale it up to the whole system, you end up with no slack, there's no give, and therefore it's not resilient at all, it just kind of collapses.
The preventative measures in response to Covid-19 meant that many people couldn't go to work and the economy had to stop functioning as it usually would. Simon highlighted that in response to this, things like food, childcare, money, and shelter have been provided in different ways. This is where those other realms that Kate describes come into play. One realm is the household, where we see informal support within families and friendship groups, doing things like cooking, cleaning, and childcare. Another is the commons, where value is co-created in both the physical and digital world. Think of Wikipedia, for example. Through the pandemic, we're seeing non-hierarchical groups like soup kitchens and free food delivery services, which apply the principles of the commons to address the community's needs. The third realm is the state, which is one we're perhaps more familiar with. In the UK, we've seen the state stepping in to support citizens through things like the furlough scheme, covering people's wages.
What that really highlights for me is that there are different ways of doing kind of economic provisioning which don't rely on the market, and because they don't rely on the market, we're able to prioritise different kinds of needs.
As well as different needs, we spoke about the fact that there are different kinds of value and different kinds of value creators too.
It's about coming to understand that entrepreneurs aren't the only value creators in our society.
Simon explained that things like volunteering or looking after your kids or working within the public sector can all be value-creating activities. And whilst we have some conception of this, at a certain point all that seems to go out the window and our economic system just prioritises financial value. The field of ecological economics recognises that there are so many other kinds of value. They could be emotional value, nutritional value, ecological value, as well as social value. And you can't possibly compress them all into one number.
So what that means is every productive decision essentially should be a political decision. It should be a decision that we argue about and we say, well, do we want to put resources into this, or should they go into that instead? What is it we actually as a society want to produce? But I think the idea of that really democratic process is in some ways quite scary.
The idea of democratic decision-making means we would collectively determine the value of things. This is important if we're to reduce our over-reliance on markets and focus on the things we believe matter in life. But as Simon says, this idea is quite strange to us. So I've looked for some examples of what that might look like. Examples that are currently working, are more democratic, and move away from traditional market-based processes. Workers' cooperatives, which are especially strong in Brazil and Norway, allow employees to have a say over things like how profits are distributed, what products they stock, or which clients they work for. Another example is providing citizens with a universal basic income, a version of which is set to roll out in Spain soon. This monthly income would allow people to spend their time doing more things they deem meaningful but which may pay less or not at all, like running a local allotment, making art, or visiting the elderly in their community. Or there's participatory budgeting. This form of democratic decision-making gives citizens a say on how money is spent, which could be deciding between upgrading the library, rolling out free school dinners, or pedestrianising the high street. I've been getting super fired up about alternative economic models for a while now, but I wanted to know from Simon how we could get others on board.
For me, if we can use video or if we can use articles like you've written to show people that there are possible futures, but that we need to be active actors in those futures.
Which one do you think will happen? What do you think is most likely? And there's an element of which I think that's a wrong question. The one which is most likely is the one that we come together to try and build. What I hope to see is that people who are really engaging in mutual aid now, that they start to kind of become politicised and they start to see connections between the work they're doing as an individual and the broader economic and social systems.
Those connections between us as individuals and the broader systems aren't always easy to see. And I think that's the reason why so many of us switch off when we even hear the word economics. But Simon reassured me that real lasting change can take place if we combine two things: action and imagination.
The world of imagination, the world of the actions you're doing right now can't exist separately. We have to work to link them together.
So what does Simon mean by action? Action means engaging in different kinds of economic provisioning. That could be sewing workers' scrubs, looking after a neighbour's kids, doing pro bono work, or being part of a cooperative or volunteer group. Those things start to emphasise the aspects of the economy which don't need to grow forever. And what does he mean by imagination? Imagination means thinking about what different futures could look like. Futures where our economy helps people to thrive and which celebrates rather than exploits our incredible planet. This kind of economy would also ensure we're safe and healthy and better equipped to deal with a pandemic like Covid-19.
There's this kind of idea that you can either have, the neoliberal economy of the US and the UK, or you can have Soviet-style socialism.
Yeah.
And I just feel like those can't be the only options. And what I want the conversation to be is about how do people come together and build those new futures and do so in a way which is just and fair.
Thanks for watching this video about alternative economic futures, and a huge thank you to Simon Mair for agreeing to be part of this conversation. It's really opened my eyes, and while this video has looked at economics from a macro scale, I'm really interested in looking at some of the more specific examples in future videos. So if you're interested or you want to start the conversation, please do comment in the comments below. Obviously, as ever, if you like the video, hit subscribe for future videos, like it, and you can find us over on Instagram as well at broaden._. Thanks.